DJ, you go crazy.
So you were on the force for 9 years total?
Pretty much, yes.
From 1986 to 1995?
Yes.
And you started to notice corruption toward the end of your stay, or was it throughout the whole time that you were noticing things?
It was probably towards the end, like the last 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, the last 2 years.
The reason why I asked is because when I was doing my research, I was looking at who was the superintendent during those times. Mm-hmm. So we know about Fred Rice. That was the superintendent when you first joined the force, Fred Rice Jr. Yeah. And then it was Leroy Martin.
Yeah.
Both African-American brothers.
Yes.
And then, about 1995, it was Matt Rodriguez.
Yeah.
So was there any type of change in the system when Rodriguez became the superintendent?
No, not that I can really recall. I think to really give you a good answer to your question about the corruption, it was pretty much always there, because when I was a police officer, I remember other police officers getting in trouble for selling drugs and different things like that under all of those administrations. So it wasn't just Matt Rodriguez.
Right.
But I remember being young on the force that I would hear about officers that I knew that had gotten indicted and different things like that for being involved in street gangs and narcotics, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned Officer Michael Clifton.
Yes.
As the officer who put the hit out on you.
Yes.
And we did our research on him. Who he was just released not too long ago on a sexual abuse charge.
Yes.
He ran out the jail with his jacket covering his head.
Yeah, running from the press.
The cameras. This is a guy you also said you used to date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us when you first met Michael Clifton?
When I got assigned to the Inglewood district right after the academy. And so I met him probably in June or July of 1987.
Okay.
And he was already working there. He had come out of the police academy earlier in a different class or something like that. Okay. And we were all just friends. And one day I was in a car accident going on a man with a gun call. And I was struck by a vehicle in an intersection, and I broke my left leg. And so I had to work inside the police station after I was able to return to work. And then that's when I would have more contact with him, because I was working inside, giving out the police radios. And we just became friends from that point. Okay. Yeah.
And so is it a rule within the Chicago Police Department, like, about dating other officers?
No.
Okay.
And we was all wilding out, with no church saint girl kind of situation. Everybody was just doing all kinds of stuff.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just really just trying to paint the picture of, what was going on at the time, right?
Yeah.
Because you said you was dating Michael Clifton. So if you all were dating, how did it get to the point where sexual assault is the topic?
Well, let me see how to answer that. Okay, first, me as a person, I was young. I think y'all seen some of the pictures where I looked like when I was,
You was looking good.
Yeah.
You still look good.
Yeah, so anyway, we were wilding out. So I dated him. I had a lot of boyfriends or whatever, because I was the shit, Okay. So anyway, he and I didn't date a long time. We just dated briefly or whatever. And during that brief period that we dated, it was toxic. Okay. And so I just couldn't deal with it anymore like that. And so he was just real petty. You know how sometimes you break up with people and then they just can't handle the breakup or whatever. So he couldn't handle that, seeing me with other people and all that kind of stuff. And so he physically assaulted me during the course of our breakup or whatever. And I reported it to the police department that he choked me out. And the police didn't really do anything. They didn't take my complaint serious. And this was years before all of this hit stuff. They just didn't take it serious or whatever. And so, that was where it all started with him, my problems with him. That was where it all started. Like when we broke up, he was the type of man that just kept a grudge the whole time.
Because at this point, y'all still working together, right?
Yeah, we're still working
you know,
at the same
right.
police department or whatever, seeing each other every day or whatever. But we weren't talking or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when we listen to your story, you know, you got multiple different characters.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm watching this story, if I'm watching this movie, because you painted a movie for us,
okay.
Right?
Yes.
I'm very interested in this guy, Jeffrey.
Okay.
I'm very interested in Jeffrey, right?
Uh-huh.
Jeffrey seemed like he was the real nigga in the situation.
Yeah.
Okay. So based off what you shared with us, what I learned about Jeffrey is Jeffrey was riding for his woman first and foremost.
Yeah, he was my ride or die.
Yeah.
No doubt with that. And I have a lot of respect for him because a lot of men wouldn't have been able to get involved in that, you know. But he just wasn't afraid of it. He just he a real nigga. He ain't afraid of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you all go from ride or die to, you know, not being together anymore?
Well, he blamed me for him being charged with all of this. I never, when I called him to tell him that I was being followed, I didn't say, come out here, help me, grab my gun, none of that kind of stuff. He made his own decision on how he wanted to get involved in all of this stuff. And so in the end, I just feel like his mistakes were that he gave statements which were turned against him, and his actions in terms of getting involved in it. He made those decisions, even though it probably saved my life, but I can't take responsibility for his decisions. So all that time, he just blamed me, and we just couldn't get past that. So that was the end of that. Even today, he's still, you know, kind of like blaming me, hating me, you ruined my life, blah, blah, blah.
So he's very bitter.
Yeah, he's bitter about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when he's blaming you though, like he's blaming you for, or what was his expectations for you is what I'm asking. What was he?
He thought that he was gonna get off because he was telling the truth. If he didn't have a record, if he wasn't a convicted felon, they wouldn't have been able to deal with him like that. Like in the beginning, people was like, "Oh man, y'all getting ready to get paid." You know, these people trying to kill you, and they you got into a shootout with them and all that kind of stuff. And everybody was looking at it from the surface like, oh man, y'all getting ready to get a fat check, you know, all this kind of stuff. But because he didn't get an expungement when he was young, which had nothing to do with me, he allowed a situation from his past to be utilized to take him down a path of persecution with the police department because he had a bad record. And if he had gotten those little things cleaned up on his own, which didn't have anything to do with me, then he would have been fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with all that you've been through, do you sometimes feel like, or what is your thoughts on, you know, that relationship, even though it's over, you know, if you just look back on it, were there any things you feel like you probably could have done differently?
Yeah, I think that in the beginning, I could have probably talked to Jeff more about his past or whatever, and maybe even helped him with, you know, getting his paperwork filed, you know, about his background and stuff like that, the expungement.
Right.
But when you dating somebody and, you know, you kicking it with them, you don't really talk about stuff like that. You know, people don't want to talk about it, things like that. I think out of this whole situation that happened to me, talking about these two men, Michael Clifton and Jeffery Wilson, is probably the most difficult and uncomfortable part of all of this, because I'm opening myself up to vulnerabilities with having to deal with the conversations that may come from this, but they are part of the story too.
Right.
You know, and so that's where I just gotta be like, fuck it. I gotta tell it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not lying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just need to be told. And this is my story, but they happen to be some characters in my story.
Right.
But nevertheless, it needs to be addressed.
Yes.
But yeah, this is probably the most uncomfortable part of this whole thing, because it's easy to be able to be in conversations with them. These other motherfuckers that's on the police department, I can give two shits about them. One of them called me on some bullshit, it's on.
Yeah.
But this is more personal and close. Because I had a relationship with Michael Clifton, had a relationship with Jeffery Wilson.
Right.
They both knew each other.
Right.
So we all knew each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but like I said, it's uncomfortable or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like I said, when we all got it in our head. We're just looking at it, right? I was just, when I was reviewing everything, I was just feeling like, man, it was like you against the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he had your back. Kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde, type of situation. You know what I'm saying? And those type of persons, they're rare. You don't find too many of them.
Yeah. I put him on a pedestal as far as his character and his street cred or whatever. He the realest nigga I never met in my life. Even though it didn't work out with us and everything like that, I still have mucho respect for him. Because a lot of guys wouldn't even, stood up, because he was, even before it led to the shootout or whatever, he was coming watching my back while I was doing basic patrol activities and everything like that. He should have been at home asleep, but he had my back. So, I can't take that credit away from him. He real street nigga. He just don't play and everything like that. But I just wish that it had not turned out like that, because we had a good chemistry together and stuff like that. Yeah. But it was just too much with the police department. Like, they would, after the shootout, they would, when I say they, internal affairs, would just try to set up little scenarios where there would be a second confrontation and things like that. And I was trying to school him on that. Don't let them provoke you because they knew that he was one of them niggas. If he had a gap, he gonna pull it out on you, fuck it, and ask the questions later on or whatever. He wasn't hesitant in popping off on the police. And so they knew that, and they would try to provoke more confrontations. And I kept begging him, stop getting emotional in all of this stuff. Don't do that. And that was difficult, because it was against his wiring, I guess. He was just like, you fuck with me, I'm gonna fuck you up. That's how he is. And so in the end, I think though his anger towards me is because I didn't go to prison. Okay. But like I say, I document everything. He wouldn't have gone to prison if he had taken care of his business back in the past, and then we would have got paid. Yeah. But they was able to use that to discredit me because he was convicted felon over a radio or car part or something he had stolen when he was 17. Now, mind you, we in our 20s, almost 30, when all this other stuff happened. Yeah. But you can leave stuff in your past and let it linger, and it can come back up to haunt you. And that's pretty much what happened with this. His criminal record from when he was like 17, 18 was what they used to take him down and get him involved, get him convicted. Yeah.
DJ, you go crazy.